So what I want to open up and talk about is doing things in phases. It is very common, and done it this year, and people doing my boot camp and my program, my Kickstart program, to start the year really strong with great intentions with health and fitness, looking at losing weight, changing body composition, adding muscle, depending on which goals that you had and started with. And sometimes those goals are phased in nature in terms of physiologically, it's better to get a body composition of lower body fat before looking at muscle building. Now, some people just want to look at that fat loss and weight loss, and ultimately the training that they would do, either with weights, body weight, whatever that looks like, is to maintain muscle mass and shape that, what we might term the toned look or toning. That itself is two phases, in a sense of two parts of reducing body fat, so you can see the muscular shape and maintaining that muscular shape that you've already got as you're in a calorie deficit, losing that body fat. Now, as I say, those goals might change over time. They might evolve in terms of maybe brand new to weight training, resistance training, using the gym in a different way to maybe how you've used it before, and you really start to enjoy that and then want to move into from a weight loss, fat loss phase into a muscle building phase. It might be that maintaining health and fitness and maintaining a healthy body weight is just the goal, and you end up going to what's called maintenance. Now, that's part of what I'm going to talk about. It's pretty impossible to just keep going continuously at the same goal, at the same pace. Naturally, things happen in life. Most of the people I work with are in a relationship, married, whatever, may have kids, other responsibilities, and different things come up as time goes on. And as well, in the last couple of years, and particularly more recently, actually, with the COVID, with more people having to take an enforced break because of getting ill and needing to recover as well. So it's pretty much impossible to be continuously working at the same rate, at the same thing, in terms of being able to train and eat. And life would be pretty boring, probably, if that's all we did was just keep on going, doing the same things all the time, not mixing things up. Now, in a sense, I've fallen into that trap myself this year, in that started really well, steady away, probably 8-9 weeks, really, really good. And then just with the busyness of the programs I'm running, boot camp, working at school as well, had to kind of ease off in terms of just needed to import some more energy from my nutrition. So I brought my food up, not intentionally to start with, but just needed to get more calories in to maintain my energy to be able to function really, really well. And in some ways, that can be a little bit frustrating because going great guns, body fat's coming down, fitness is feeling good, strength is maintaining pretty much reasonably well with the workouts I've been able to do, and then have to, in a sense, ease off that. But I took a step back and thought about it. Actually, 8-9 weeks is probably a good amount of time to be keeping on going at the same goal. Now, that's not to say that the goal isn't continuing. It's just a good point to ease off and be potentially more mindful of actually bringing particularly my calorie intake up, and maybe depending on what sort of training you've been doing, that you might actually take a steadier approach for 1 or 2 weeks across both elements. Now, when we're particularly in a calorie deficit, looking at weight loss and fat loss, there are certain hormones that work in the body to tell the body that you are in need to burn fat. And also at a certain point, there's a hormone called ghrelin that kicks in, that's saying that you are working under less calorie intake. You have been using your body fat stores, but it kind of is there to say, do you know what, you probably need to bring it up a little bit more. Also, physiologically, we get used to what we are doing. The same way we get used to the stimulus of training, if we kept on doing the same workouts or same weights in the workouts for 3, 4, 5 weeks, would become easier because we have adapted to that stimulus. The body also adapts to the amount of calories you're giving it. So this is what calls your metabolism to actually change in relation to what you're bringing in. So that is actually why it's good to have a period of taking the calories back up to reset these things. Now, if it's done in a controlled manner, as in mindfully, doesn't have to be super strict in terms of tracking everything exactly, unless you're someone like me who will go shooting up and over. If you take the kind of parameters away, it can be done in such a way as literally manipulating, changing what we're putting into MyFitnessPal, or literally starting to look at what foods we're going to add to bring that back up. Go back up to a period of maintenance calories. That means actually for that period of time, we're not looking at expecting any fat loss. The other positive implication that can have is that when you then, if your body does, if you don't add excessive amount of calories, therefore start adding weight and body fat back, other than water weight, because particularly if you increase your carbohydrates, you're going to increase your water retention to store those carbohydrates or have them available in the body. For every gram of carbohydrates you ingest, you're going to also maintain or also take in with it and need to have with it another around about 2.7 to 3 grams of water as well. So that weight can easily go up. That's why it can go up after a big meal or a day where you eat a lot of carbohydrates. Then you're also going to have that water weight come in, and you've got that balance will need to shift back again after 2 or 3 days just by natural digestion and processing. Once that's kind of settled down, actually that higher calorie intake of a mindful nature can mean that you don't have to go as low again to get the same sort of deficit as before. So actually over time you are taking up the amount you need to be in a calorie deficit for fat loss and weight loss. That's got to be a good thing, because then you can literally be eating more food to still work towards the same goal and result. So in my mind, 7, 8, 9 weeks is a good phase of working at a calorie deficit. Then 1 or 2 weeks off. Now, depending on where you are in the world, this could fit quite nicely if you've got kids into term time and holiday time. I say that because here in Northern Ireland, after Easter, we haven't really got a half term because we actually finish at the end of June rather than into July. So we have a longer summer, but less of a break between Easter and the end of the school year. So it's looking at those things. It's a good way to do it, might well be those half terms. For me, sometimes that can be, historically, that can be a little bit flipped up in the sense of probably do need that break at half term, except for what I enjoy doing is training. And if I've got more time, I might want to do more of that. But actually that probably means I might need to be more mindful of my nutrition as well, because I might actually be more active whilst I'm off, which is the kind of the rest time. So it's using the things that we've got coming up to our advantage. So like I say, if you've got kids and Easter holidays are coming up, particularly this Easter holidays when it's Easter eggs and all that sort of thing, maybe it is a time to think, actually, do you know what, I'm going to go to my maintenance calories, probably about 400 to 500 calories more than your calorie deficit level, and sit at that for 10 days, 2 weeks. Still be active, still keep that going as best you can with that consistency. Use that extra energy if you are training with weights, particularly to see if you can progress what you're doing in terms of repetitions and weight, and use those calories for more energy and more strength, and make these times work for you, and physiologically give yourself a bigger advantage going then back into that calorie deficit, weight loss, fat loss phase afterwards. And over time, it might be that your calorie intake can be higher to still achieving a deficit, and it can mean as well that you might even shorten down these phases even more. Most of the time at school, using that example, the half terms are 6 or 7 weeks, so that'd be quite nice. There is good evidence that even having 4 weeks of a deficit, and maybe a stronger deficit, as in dropping that even more, is probably more relevant for guys actually, because overall calorie intake would be higher, so you could probably tolerate a higher deficit for a short period of time. 3-4 weeks of a good deficit, maybe 10% or more than maybe if you were doing it over a longer period, and then taking those breaks as well in between that. So kind of might be what we call a calorie deficit sprint, and then back off again, and then back again, almost like interval training, except that we're talking about doing it over 4 weeks at a time rather than a longer period of time, 8 weeks. Almost difference between a sprint and a middle distance type of event. As I say, we can't do something indefinitely and get the same result. The actual drop off in terms of fat loss and fat utilization by the body will down regulate, because the body will just get used to that new level of intake, and the hormones, ghrelin and potentially stress hormones will upregulate to stop that. You got to remember that actually being in a deficit, and too strong a deficit, will be quite stressful to the body, and actually we don't want to over stress. And this is where stress itself as a factor, external stress, can be a limiting factor for weight loss and fat loss, because the body prioritizes that fight or flight mechanism and dealing with that over physiologically using fat as energy. So that's another good reason to do these shorter periods, or do these set periods with that in mind of we're going to come back up to maintenance to then be able to go back in again. As I say, that could happen naturally, and that does happen naturally for people in terms of life, the ups and downs of life, illness, things like that. But if we could be even more mindful and more planned in, there might be that benefit there. So with that being said, if you'd like any help and support to look at that, see how that might fit in nicely for you in your circumstances, please give me a shout. Contact me in the normal way through social media, Messenger, WhatsApp, all those sorts of things, or mark@mwfitness.net.
Thank you for listening to the Always Moving Forward podcast. You can find more information about MW Fitness at www.mwfitness.net, and all our links to social media are there too.